Hi, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. If today's video were a country and western song, it would be Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Fail to Read Their Insurance Contracts. I'll have more in just a moment. This case, Nationwide Property versus Christopher Adams, is a really good example of why I say everybody ought to read their insurance contract and understand it. And if you have questions, don't ask the insurance agent, because the insurance agent's word about what the policy means absolutely nothing. It has no effect whatsoever in court. Instead, go ask your attorney. And this case demonstrates why that's important very clearly. So, Christopher Adams owned a company called Apple Signs. It was an LLC that he owned with his wife. And one of the jobs of a sign company is to put up signs. And a lot of times, in order to do that, you need to have ladders. So, this is how the court described the background in this case. In July of 2019, Randall Alexander fell off a ladder while he was welding for Apple Signs. Alexander missed 3 weeks of work due to the resulting injuries, and Chris Adams, Apple Signs owner, paid Alexander's medical expenses. Adams did not tell Nationwide about the accident or the resulting injuries or expenses. So, there's a problem here, and the problem is that every policy contains a notification clause. The notification clause essentially says you have to notify us in a timely manner regarding anything that might present a claim. Here's what the opinion says about the notification clause. The policy requires that Nationwide be notified as soon as practicable of an occurrence or an offense which may result in a claim. While the policy never defines as soon as practicable, other parts of the agreement discuss the timing of notice. In a section describing medical payment coverage for bodily injury, the policy states, "We will pay medical expenses for bodily injury caused by an accident because of your operations, provided that the expenses are incurred and reported to us within 1 year of the date of the accident." And then it says, emphasis added. So Adams, as the owner of Apple Signs, paid Mr. Alexander's medical expenses, and for this good deed, how was he rewarded? Well, Randall Alexander sued him. So he did what anybody would do at that point. He turned it over to his insurance company. But Mr. Adams had failed to read the policy. Because the policy did not require Mr. Adams to notify Nationwide of a lawsuit, it required him to notify him of an incident which might produce a claim. Now, as you can see here, one of the things that Nationwide did was it didn't define what as soon as practicable meant. I think that's because people understand that generally to be within a reasonable time, and that's more or less what Alabama law holds. This is an Alabama case. And so they had every right under this notification clause to expect that they would be notified of an incident. One of the things that insurers do, and they do it quite frequently, is they file what's called a declaratory judgment action. And a declaratory judgment action basically says, here, court, read this contract and tell us what it says. Tell us whether we have a duty to defend or indemnify the Adams family. Well, not that Adams family, but this Adams family. And the courts are certainly able to do that. There is an active controversy about what the contract means, and so they dive into it and they decide what it means. And when Nationwide says we don't believe we have a duty to defend or indemnify, that means they not only don't have to pay any damages, they don't have to provide Mr. Adams with a lawyer. And given the nature of the claim, that might be the far worse thing here. So the court allowed discovery to go through, and then it ruled on summary judgment. And here's what it said. Nationwide moves for summary judgment on two grounds. First, Nationwide claims that the employee exclusion provides coverage. Second, Nationwide asserts that Apple Sign's late notice precludes coverage. Compliance with the notice requirements in an insurance policy is a condition precedent to recovery, and they cite a case. So the court begins and ends with Nationwide's second argument. The parties agree that Nationwide's policy required Apple Signs to notify Nationwide of occurrence as soon as practicable. The only question is whether Apple Signs met that requirement when it waited 17 months to notify Nationwide about Alexander's fall and resulting injuries. And the court then went through some, I guess you would call exceptions to the rule about timely notice, where it said, look, if you didn't really believe that there was any chance you would get sued on this, then maybe it's not such a bad thing that you didn't notify anybody. So, for example, if an incident happened and the only person who saw it was a non-management employee and he didn't report it up the chain of command, the fact that you didn't get notification might not work against you. So the parties did discovery, and they finished that discovery. They moved for summary judgment. I'm sure that the insured moved for summary judgment contrary to the insurance company. And here's how the court analyzed it. Here's what it said about timely notice. The court finds that notice after 17 months is not timely under the policy. Again, Nationwide's policy never defines as soon as practicable, but other parts of the agreement are instructive. And then it cites the medical expense provision. This portion of the policy strongly suggests that failing to notify Nationwide of an accident within 1 year will terminate Nationwide's duty to pay medical expenses. 17 months expense 1 year, so the policy's text suggests Apple Sign's notice was untimely. And then the court did something that courts often do when they are justifying what is a bad result for the insured. They say this: waiting 17 months to notify Nationwide about the accident frustrated the purpose of the notice requirement to give Nationwide the opportunity to investigate its potential liability and prepare a defense if necessary. It was practicable for Adams to notify Nationwide that Alexander had suffered injuries and that Adams was paying. So it seems pretty obvious that the court found the 17 months delay to be something that it could not allow him to recover on under the insurance policy. And this gets back to what I say all the time. Specifically, you need to read your policy and understand its language. And if you have a question about whether or not you should notify someone, you should always act on the side of notification. If your insurance policy has a timely notification clause, and most of them do, whether it's homeowners, business insurance, car insurance, whatever, if it has that kind of clause, you need to notify it whenever there is any potential for being held liable and being sued. If your insurance policy has that kind of clause, you need to notify them, because if you don't, you'll wind up running into this kind of situation. It is impossible for you to know what's in the hearts and minds of somebody who's had an accident on your property. It's also impossible for you to know what their financial situation is. And yes, there are people who are out there who are the kind of people who say, oh boy, Uncle George fell and broke his leg. We're all going to get rich now. And that's a shame, because that's not what the law is for. The law is there to compensate people who are legitimately injured by negligence, not by their own failure to watch where the heck they're going, or to be careful about climbing a ladder or coming down off of a ladder. It's frequent that insurance companies try to get out of paying, and they will use every legal means available to them to do that. Usually, courts will hold them to the contract when the contract is clear and unequivocal and provides that they will provide a coverage. But if there is wiggle room in there, you can count on an insurance company trying to exploit it. If you have questions about the contents of this video, please leave them in the comments down below. Remember, I can't give legal advice, and I don't give legal advice unless you become a client. So, again, thank you for watching, and I appreciate all of your comments on the videos. Thank you again and have a great day.